So I do want to thank you guys for being here. I'm very, very excited to be having Beauty Event Mastery because I've been dreaming about this course for probably about a year since I started doing events like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, somewhere around there. And it took me a good year to figure them out where I felt comfortable in them, where I felt like I knew what I was doing up in front of the room. Hey, then I started to kind of feel like, oh, well, what I'm saying is like helping people, right? Like I started to see people in the room who were impacted, when I started to see emotions and tears. And then it was exciting to have people say yes, that they wanted to be in my program. So I was like, wow, this shit really works. I literally was just doing everything that my coach was telling me to do, and I would just get up and he was like, Alex told me to share my story, and he told me to do this, and then he told me to pitch this, and I would do it, and it would work. So that was really exciting to me. And then I had clients, and then I started coaching. And that was interesting because I had information to share, and I had my own results, but my clients didn't have results yet. So I was just kind of like, well, I know it worked for me, and I hope that it works for other people. So as other clients were working and using my strategies, like Tyna's a perfect example of it, it was really exciting to see people getting results. But there was also a lot of people who were kind of getting stuck in the beginning, and I found that it was challenging. Like I didn't always have the answer for things. Like a lot of times, my clients say, but you just say it so well, or I've said it a lot, but I've had a lot of moments where I felt that I was right, that what I was saying was right, like it felt right, but I wasn't sure, and now I have more certainty with it. So I feel like the community has changed tremendously because I'm more on purpose. Like I know what's working, I know what my gifts are, and I am starting to see that I am very clearly able to see what your gifts are. So when that was all coming together, I really wanted to start teaching live events. And funny enough, so my first coach, Alex Moscow, which I always talk about, if you were an entrepreneur, right, if you were a coach, anything like that, you would be going to these events with Alex. So to me, Alex is like, he's certainly a soulmate. Like we have like some crazy connection, but we're literally the same thing in two different spaces. So like everything I do, he does, and vice versa. Like we're just inspired by each other, and we also help each other grow. So when the idea of Beauty Event Mastery came to be, we had a conversation. He's like, that's so funny. I'm just kicking off my program, which is called Small Events, Big Profits. And I was like, that's amazing. And I hate him because the name is amazing. Like that's really what we're looking to do here is we're looking to have small events, like the type of events that we have been preparing for are not for the masses, because what we're looking for is high level of connection. And until we're like Tony Robbins, who can do it for thousands and thousands of people, really being able to go that deep with people, for me, it feels like it's the easiest when it's a small group. I know every person in the room, I know their story. So I'm able to create more impact because I know what you're bringing to the table, and I also know what I'm doing. So anyway, thought of Beauty Event Mastery. I was really excited about it. And then I was like, Beauty by Design had just started to become like a thing where people were like, well, what is this thing? And I want to be a part of the program. So like I had a core offer that worked. And I'm like, oh, now I gotta go back to like starting over with like a new baby, So, and I was nervous about it because I'm like, okay, well, first thing, what's the price gonna be, right? Everything that we all talk about, what's the price gonna be? And what am I gonna share? And, I knew I had a lot of stuff, but I'm like, now I gotta sit and organize it and figure it out. So I was nervous about it, but I knew that I was gonna pitch it. So the first time I presented it was the boot camp last year in October. And when I presented it, I was nervous as hell. I was like, I don't know. And there was interest in the room, but from that event, I didn't fill the program at all. And it was a really good moment for me because I wanted the program, like I knew that it could be something, but I was really afraid of it. Like I was afraid of the next thing, and I was going through a lot of things personally. Like I had moved to Los Angeles a few months before, and I was just settling in, but also financially I was going through a lot of stuff because when I was in New York, I was working in a nightly show, like so I had 2 incomes. And by the time I got to Los Angeles and I started hosting events from there, like the production cost for things was much more, and now I have less money coming in, and I kind of never sat down and like do the math. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, oh, business is great and whatever. So I was like, why do I feel like things are getting kind of tight all of a sudden? So by the time that the boot camp happened in October, and this is kind of what we were talking about earlier today about like the financial piece behind it, like it was not totally driven by the financial result, but it definitely, I would be lying if I said it wasn't, because I needed a win. That's how I felt. Like it just felt uncomfortable and I needed a win. So when I presented the course, truth be told, I didn't have it mapped out because, you know, how I think is like, let me fill it. I know that I'll create it. I have no, like I know what I'm going to share, but I don't have, and I knew the container, but I didn't know what this event was going to be like, honestly, until probably like a good week and a half ago. So pitched it, and there was interest, but it wasn't like, you know, you've been in the rooms where you've seen like it wasn't like that. Like the energy behind it was just off. And looking back now, I know that the reason why that didn't fill, and I'm grateful that it didn't fill, because it would have been it wouldn't have been the right room, it wouldn't have been the right experience, it wouldn't have been the right people at the right time. But it was a lesson that it was more about the purpose behind it and the energy behind it. So it was right around that time that I found Abraham Hicks, and you guys hear me talk about it all the time. And I started to get more aligned with the idea of energy, you know. And now when I look back at that, I was like, I was just so off. I had so much contrast. I was in so much lack. I was looking at everything that wasn't working. So when I made that presentation, it just, you know, the reason it didn't work was because it was me. And it was also the best gift. I don't know if the experience of Beauty Event Mastery would have been what it has been if I had done it then, you know. So it was it's a really good lesson to never focus on the financial results, to always focus on, you know, what am I doing here? Why is this important to me? Like the reason I decided to do it from the beginning was because it sounded exciting to me. And then I got out of my heart and into my head of like the financial part or whatever, and that was the mistake I made. So that's why when we were talking before, I'm like, it's like a rite of passage. It's gonna happen. You know, you're gonna want and it's not that I don't want the results. I always want my events to be successful, but the success of that event was learning that lesson. And every presentation since then has been so much stronger, so much more on purpose, because I got that lesson quick. So this weekend, what it's about is, I don't really care if your presentation isn't perfect. You know, I don't care if your story isn't perfect. It doesn't matter. Like, it's about the connection with yourself. You know, what do you want to say? What do you want to do? Why are you doing this? Like, you're doing this for a reason. This mattered for a reason, and it's not just financial. Like, yes, financial is important, because I do believe that when you live on purpose, like, for sure, the universe supports you. And I'm totally an example of that. But I also know that if you focus on the financial part of it alone, then that's when things get kind of wonky. You know, you have to keep following that intuition of what feels good, why was this exciting to me, and then it leads to the right doors, the right people, and it's a completely different experience. So, you know, I ended up pitching this again in February, and for that boot camp, and the energy in the room was completely different. Like, everyone stood up, everybody wanted to do it, everybody wanted a piece of it. Like, my closing rate for that event was like 80%, which is unheard of. Typically for closing like 10 to 15%, that's great. So, and those are the kinds of results I'm used to generating, and I'm realizing that the reason I get really strong results is because I am always on purpose. And the one time I didn't do it, I got those shitty results. So, can only learn through the experience. So you may have some shitty events coming up, and you may learn that way, but I hope that, by me sharing this and being so honest that, like, I know that sometimes it looks like, well, it just works. When she does it, it doesn't always work. And certainly we're going to be doing more things with like webinars and other things, and we're going to suck at those for a while too, but the point is that you have to remember why this mattered from the beginning. And it could be about, changing your life, changing the life of your family, but you also love what you do. And you're having fun. So please remember that. Remember that this weekend as best you can. And when you're up here, I know that the setting is a little bit more intimidating too, because it's all eyes on you, but the point of it is that when you're in the room and you're in the front of the room, all eyes are on you. So we're going to use the power of the community this weekend. So it's not just my feedback, it's what are we feeling? How do we feel connected to your message? And if it's not perfect, that's okay. The point of it is for you to leave with notes, constructive criticism, ways that you can, moving forward, continue to refine your message, because it's never done. And it's the same thing as coming to one of my boot camps. It's the same thing as going to any training or any class. Like, where people have the mindset wrong is they think that, okay, I'm going to go to this class and I'm going to just get it done. That's not that way. The class is where you get to mess up, where you get to practice, and then you go home and you implement and you implement and you implement until you start getting the results that you want. So this is literally just us going through what we've been going through on the calls for the last few weeks, okay? I'm really excited that you guys are here. It's gonna be an awesome weekend. I'm very excited that Patty's gonna come. I love when my mentors are around, when you guys have access to them, and Patty is like near and dear to my heart because I met her at the very first like entrepreneurial event that I ever went to. She in fact was my roommate, and we just had a connection from the very beginning, and I knew back then that Patty and I were going to do something together, but I also knew that I wasn't ready for her. So it's awesome for her to be working with me now because she's really stretching my vision of what I know I'm here to do. But it also feels really good to get to the point where I'm like, wow, I can work with these like leaders and coaches that are the ones I dreamed of working. So, soak it all in, and please ask as many questions as possible the entire time. No question is stupid. Our room is safe. You know that. So the most that you're going to get out of this is going to be based on how open you are to the experience, okay? So, and I got a new little remote, so let's hope that I know how to use it, because I don't know. So first, what we're going to start with is what I like to call an icebreaker. We talked about this on, I believe, the third call when we were talking about crafting the presentation. So when you have an intimate event like this, especially an event where we are talking about, certainly we're talking about personal growth, we're talking about people's businesses, it's very different, I would say. This question, I hope that I don't think I looked over the slides. I know I put them together, I looked at them very briefly. I also like to go off the cuff, I like the nerves. But there might be some nerves in the room, so I like to just get it out in the open. And then also start to change the energy by asking a positive question, which is, what are you most excited about for the weekend? So as you do this, it gives everyone the opportunity to get clear on what those things are. And as the presenter, it helps me because now I'm getting an understanding of what my audience is going to need from me from this weekend. What do I need to touch on? So the entire time, the entire presentation, whether it's a 1 day or if it's 2 days or 3 days, you want to consistently be checking in with your audience so that you have connection. Where are they? What do they need to know? But also, since it is an intimate event and I'm looking to go deep this weekend, I want to go deep with everyone. I want to make the room safe, and I want to do it as quickly as possible. So if we start doing shares right off the bat, we're going to get there that much quicker. So the last event that I had, three of you ladies were there. We got there very quick. There was people in tears and telling these amazing stories. And when that happens, there's a timeline. We have gone through a run of show, if it's a 1 day or a 3 day event. But let's say if you've set aside an hour and it goes into 2 hours or 3 hours, keep it going, okay? The power, the energy in the room is really, really important. So If it's running late because it's going really, really well and people are really engaged, that is your cue to keep going that way. Forget your schedule. And that comes from someone who's very OCD and has, I get anxiety with time. So, but at the end of the day, you have to remember why people came. They came for something. So if they're getting it, don't rob them of that opportunity. Okay? So if you haven't written down what you're most nervous about, what are you most excited about, I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that now. Okay? Hi, Instagram. By the way, I want to say hello. Welcome to Beauty Event Mastery. Is it chilly in here again? No, it's okay. If anybody just went on IG, they just watched me drink coffee for no reason. I'm just like, okay. Okay, so typically, once you've gone through this with your attendees, you're going to want to go around the room and have them share. We're going to do that for sure. But also, as we shared, there's different stories that we want to be telling. So the story I want to be telling today is about inspiration. And we've talked, if you've been on some of my lives, I don't think I've actually shared it in the content, because it's just something that recently I've become more connected with. But I want to share a story of inspiration today. I know that we talk a lot about different stories, right? So the hero's journey, the story of regret, testimonials. I'm finding that there's a distinction between motivation and inspiration. So typically when I'm doing a 3-day event on day 2, like day 1 is kind of like, what do you want, just like sky's the limit. And then day 2, the videos that I'm sharing, the tone is more motivational. Well, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to get it? Mm-hmm. And then day 3 is legacy. What do you want to be known for? Why is this important to you? But today I want to kind of chat about the difference between inspiration and motivation. So motivation, and by the way, I'm lifting this all from Abraham Hicks, but when I listen to it, I'm like, damn, you're right. So I'm going to share it with you. So as Abraham says it, motivation is something like you go to work and you get paid. So you're motivated to work because you're going to get paid. Inspiration is being in alignment where the idea comes and now you take action from that idea. Very different. Do you guys see the distinction between that? One is a bit more efforted, and then the second one is like, I'm just inspired, I'm going to go and do. So we talk a lot about taking action, and I've definitely been someone in the past who said, well, you just got to do it and you got to just dive in, and I do really believe that, but I am also connecting more with the idea of like, well, let's get the energy right before you take the action, because then when it feels really good, the action doesn't feel hard. Getting on the phone and closing a sale or getting up in front of the room doesn't feel hard. It might feel a little nerve-wracking, it might feel a little exciting, but it feels right. Like we all know the difference between something that's just like, why am I working so hard? And something that's like, wow, I feel challenged and inspired and I want to do it. It's not, like when I'm done, I'm tired, but it just feels really good. So certainly in my events, I'm looking to hit more on that. And since you guys are also presenting events, I just ask you to consider what's the message that you want to share. Inspiration versus motivation. And is there room for both? Because there might be, But today, what I like to think of, with day 1, day 2, day 3 events, typically the breakdown is day 1 is mindset, day 2 is strategy, and day 3 is implementation. So with day one, a lot of it is about stretching the vision. So we get a bit more tactical. By the time we get to day three, you're going to be presenting, so that's the actual implementing, right? The strategy, we've gotten it all on the calls. So you guys know you've already crafted your stories, you've crafted your presentations. But today is more about, why are we doing this? Why does this matter? And, you know, what can come of it, right? Like really dreaming. So in that vein, I want to share a video. Good on that?
Thank you. I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why did I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer will have them.
That's my favorite part.
If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. My third story is about death. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything you thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas and got a few cells from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctors started crying because it turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery, and thankfully, I'm fine now. This was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called the Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bibles of my generation. It was created by a fellow named Stuart Brand, not far from here in Menlo Park, and he brought it to life with his poetic touch. This was in the late 60s, before personal computers and desktop publishing, so it was all made with typewriters, scissors, and Polaroid cameras. It was sort of like Google in paperback form 35 years before Google came along. It was idealistic, overflowing with neat tools and great notions. Stuart and his team put out several issues of the Whole Earth Catalog, and then, when it had run its course, they put out a final issue. It was the mid-1970s, and I was your age. On the back cover of their final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were so adventurous. Beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their farewell message as they signed off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I have always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you all very much.
So if you've been to any of my events, that's very different. The tone of it is very different than what you've seen before. But because this event is about hosting live events, and this is you taking a step in your, not career, but in your life, to really step out big, right? To really step into your purpose, I felt it was a good time to remind you that this is not just about getting up on a stage. It's not just about, doing a beautiful presentation, but it's really about getting clear of like why this matters to you. When I watched that, each one of the stories resonated for different reasons, for sure. Like the first story of, him being fired and all of that, it was, it's crazy because you think, wow, you're doing the thing you love. How could it just go off the rails? So in such a crazy way, I've been doing makeup for 17 years, and when I hit that point where it felt like it just wasn't working anymore the way that it used to, like that's how I felt. I was just like, how is this thing, the thing that I love, how is this not working anymore? And I realize now that was, the universe was probably trying to tell me for a while, and I wasn't really getting it, because I really, I got it after, but I think it was the universe telling me, hey, it's time to go in a different direction. It's time for something else. So for me, I was just like, well, what could that be? And I started looking outside of makeup. And when I tried to do that, like my mom was like, just get a job. So I tried to find something, and it just didn't really resonate, And then later, as he said, when you connect the dots and you look back, like I see that it was just shifting within the space that I loved, which was beauty, and that's how I found myself, how I found Beauty Mastermind. When he talks about the story of like the death, and him being diagnosed with cancer, and just really understanding the gravity of death, that for me really resonates, because a lot of times our fear comes from, feeling embarrassed, like what if it doesn't work? What are the people going to think? And those stories hold us back so much. So we've talked a lot in Beauty Mastermind about really staying in your own lane. And while I think it's so important to follow others on social media and support and do all those wonderful things that you want to do, I also think it's really important to preserve what you're consuming and what you are opening your energy up to, because this is about getting off the well-worn path. This is about creating your own path, and there's nothing in front of you that has been really carved out. Like, you're doing it for yourselves. And if you're looking at anyone else, it is the quickest way to deviate off of that. You don't need any extra noise, and it is also the quickest way to slow down, to start stumbling. The quieter that you make things for yourself, the more able you are to listen to your own intuition and your own gut. You're here with me because I'm helping you with the organization, right? The strategy of it, but the vision is yours. So I can never say to you, Elena, this is your vision. You're always gonna have to tell me, right? You always have to have that conversation with yourself. And then what we do together is we figure out a way to bring that to life. So do whatever you can to preserve that and cultivate that relationship with yourself, because the more that you do that, like we were just talking earlier today, Tayana, about how the energy behind everything that you've been doing is just so different. Mm-hmm. And from the very beginning, you've been doing amazingly, but it just feels more clear. Mm-hmm. And that's telling me that you're finding it. It's like, it's not that you didn't have it before, but it's like the connection is closer, right? So it's just, it's just really seamless. So for those of you who are just getting started with not only live events, but really looking at your business and your life in this bigger way, I'll speak for myself. I know that the first couple of years, even still now, Beauty Mastermind is in its infancy, but the first year and a half, I was really just like, oh, okay, let me try. You're figuring it out. So allow for the mistakes, which are really the lessons, and trust the process. You know, trust it. If you don't get the result you want one time, you keep going. And the reason that you are all here in the room is because you already know that. But I want to remind you of that today, because the power of live events is huge. And the access that we have now with social media, I mean, you know, this is on live right now. You have the ability to really touch people in a way that's really different and dynamic, and also global. So you're already global. If you're on social media, if you're online, you are already global. What do you want to use with that? Like, what do you want to say with that powerful tool? And live events is a beautiful, beautiful way to do it, because it can reach many people, but the people in the room, the energy here will be so different. So I would like to go around the room. I'd love for you guys to share, what are you most excited about? What are you most nervous about for the weekend, and what are you most excited about for the weekend? Why don't we start with Yelena?
Sure. So what I'm most nervous about is the flow of the speech. If I've connected it properly. And what I'm excited
For the
about
story?
for the story,
Okay.
yeah, for the journey, my personal journey. And what I'm most excited about is that I get to share my passion.
Yeah, that's great. So with the part that you're excited about, that you're most nervous about, that's the part that's like, you will probably stumble. You'll probably, I can almost guarantee you're not going to get it exactly right, because you're also thinking about it that way, like, I hope I get it just right. There is no just right. Other than just you know your story. You lived it. You know, you probably have a few bullet points, right? You know, what is the call? What's the pit? What's the breakthrough? So there's a certain point where you have to throw, we've talked about this before too, you got to throw your notes away. Because one is, if someone's up here and saying, today I did this, you know, like, the connection is gone. What we want to hear is your story. And like, if you've seen any of the videos I've done lately for like my webinar landing pages or my events, there's usually some hiccups in it, and I never edit those out, because how I work is I typically have a script. I've been using like a teleprompter to do it, but I also know what I want to say. So, you know, I have it on in the background, so I know that I'm saying, like, I'm including the things I want to say, but I'm also going off the cuff with it, because I have to trust my message. You know, I have to trust that I know it. You know, if you ever feel uncertain, I've had this experience before I do live event. I mean, I felt this way this morning, like, I could have gone over my slides one more time or whatever. Like, it will never feel like, you know, even when I feel like I have it in the bag, when I do a beauty boot camp, I've done those many times, so I know that presentation very well. But even so, it's always different every time. So you just have to trust that what you know, it's already there, you know? So we're gonna play with it. And I kind of hope you mess up today, honestly, because the beauty is in how do you weave through it when that happens. If it only works, if you say it exactly one way every time, your audience loses a really special part of you, which is the realness. So I hope you have the hiccups and the bumps. Seriously. Stacy.
What am I most nervous about? Telling my story, and then what am I most excited about is presenting in front of y'all. Well, the pitch.
Why does telling your story make you nervous? What is it about it?
I'll talk about it later.
Okay.
I hate crying.
Oh my God, you're a beauty master. You should love crying at this
no,
point.
I hate crying. I do. Thank you.
Well, I do hope that not only throughout this weekend, but as we move forward in life, that you get a little bit more comfortable with it. I believe that you are becoming more comfortable with it. I also know that the tears are a form of release and that they're necessary. So the more you're open to embracing that, the more you're open to clearing those things that have been holding you back, right? Stacy, the last few months, you have hit the ground running. And it's actually no surprise that you would be feeling just how you're feeling now, because you have not only been stretched, but you've leaned into every single thing. So when you are moving at a fast pace, like expect that. That's gonna happen. Every time I used to go to my events with Alex, like my mastermind, like I'm just in the girl in the corner who's always crying. Like there's this one guy in his mastermind now, and he was like, "Are you gonna cry?" Like every time I see him, every time, you know. So I think it's good. I think it's good, and we all need a place where we can kind of, you know, let it go. So hopefully it's this weekend, okay? So what are you most nervous about, and what are you most excited about?
What I'm most nervous about is the way things will land, because I mean I can practice it with other people, but this room will understand it a lot better. So like my pitch and my story, just the way it lands, like the way I think it's gonna land versus the way it actually lands is what I'm a little nervous about. But then on the flip side, I'm most excited about getting clarity on it. So
yeah. So no, and I can understand the nervousness around it. The beauty of having the opportunity to be in the room is that you're having the conversation with people who know like what the story is for. But I would also urge you to, I've heard you tell your story. At my last event you did, and you killed it. You know, I heard a story I'd never heard before. I grabbed a tissue. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily like, we're not saying we have to make everyone cry. But the point is that it resonated, it like pierced me, you know? So when you are there, and I've seen you be there so many times where you're just like open, it's always just right. You know, I also know that you have that high achiever thing and that perfectionist thing of I want to get it just right. Welcome to everybody in the room, you know, but that will be probably your biggest deficit if that's the tool you're looking to use this weekend. I would say leave that. Okay. If you can focus on just flowing with it and making as many mistakes as possible, that would be more fun. Okay? Great. Steve.
Yeah, so I'm not really nervous about much this weekend. I don't think that I have many like expectations, like, because I'm walking into it just kind of fresh, like, all right, you know, it's going to be a good experience, and you know, so I mean, but in general, what I'm most nervous about related to this program is just, you know, creating an event and no one showing up, or creating an event where people show up but it doesn't convert into a booking. So that's in general what makes me nervous, but this weekend doesn't necessarily.
Okay, well I'm glad that you said focusing on last October. You can't worry about how many people are going to be in the room, or is it going to convert into a sale. Like if you work, it's too small. It's too small, and it's fear focused. So that's looking this way, and if we can turn you this way, which is just like, well, I love bridal makeup. I love working with brides. You know, I'm looking for my next brides because each one is a new project. It's exciting to come up with an idea for them. And I know that when these brides come into the room and they see what I do and the way that I help them, you know, get really clear on what they want and create, like, that's exciting. Which one is more exciting to you? Which one of those two?
Oh, definitely, obviously thinking more about the prospective client that I might gain rather than who's going to show up.
Okay, so one is the prospective client that I might gain, because the languaging is so important here. But the other one is, what about the experience that I get to create for not only myself but for my client? Okay. You know what I mean? I want more clients for sure, but I'm also excited to have the people in the room, because I know that when I am here and I'm doing what I do, someone's like, I got it, I have an idea, I know what I want to do, and like then it starts to move and really shake, and you know, and then when we're talking about an offer or what's next, there's a reason for it. They have a vision, they can see how I want more of this, right? So you can do that exact same thing with your bride. So it's okay that you're not nervous, that's a good thing, but it also is telling me that the vision could probably be stretched a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because we want the vision to be so big that it is a little scary. You know, you want it to be what feels like bigger than you, because it's not that it's not bigger than you. You're capable of a lot, you know. What you've done in a small period of time with just like recorded, like it's amazing. It's amazing. You're absolutely where you're supposed to be. My feeling is maybe you haven't had the opportunity to see how big it could be. Because it already is that big, you know. I think that the impact that you have on people, I think that your presentation, the way that you look, the way that you speak, the interaction that you have with your clients is unique. And that if you're not clear on how big that is and what a huge gift that it is, and you're worried about how many clients am I going to get, they're not going to get to see that part.
I agree.
Okay?
But I'm most excited to like hear from everybody else and like what their experience is, since it seems like almost everybody's had a live event. So I just want to like know like, you know, like what it's all about. That gets me excited.
Yeah. Well, that's why this weekend is really great too. It's you're discovering. You know what I mean? Some have had events, some are about to have events. There's going to be some more ladies joining us this weekend that are in the same kind of place. Like I've never had one before, and whatever. So. It's definitely a bit more fun when there's more people around. I know when I had my first event, like it was literally just me and my coach. Like there wasn't a mastermind yet. Like I was literally his first client. So, you know, he was just getting on calls and he was like, okay, well, what are you doing? When's your event? And I'm like, okay. And he's like, 3 days. I'm like, 3 days? Can it be 2? And he's like, no, it's got to be 3, you know? And I'm just like doing whatever he said. But having the power of a community so that you can bounce those ideas off of also helps. You know, I was very fortunate that when Alex was first starting, I was his first, so he, you know, really gave me a lot of attention because he had the time for it, you know. But also by the time it got to where it was a mastermind community, like I had already done some of those things, so I was able to be in the room and say, hey, I did it and it wasn't so bad, it actually worked. You know what I mean? So I'm very happy you're here, because you just have a lot to offer. Tiana, what are you most nervous about? I feel kind of funny asking you this.
Yeah, I'm not really nervous.
Yeah. You've done many of them at this point.
Yeah. They all feel very different every time that I do them. I still get the nerves like actually executing, I think.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just generally speaking, my challenge and the nerves come from, like you said, like moving away from the script. I'm very,
yes,
you know.
You like polish.
I like polish. I like it to be together. I like it to be, you know.
Yes.
I like the presentation to be there, the experience, and so just letting go of that. Even when I do lives and stuff, I find myself kind of being married to a script, and so I want to grow out of that. And so this weekend for me is about letting some of that go.
Yeah.
And just going with the energy of it, because like you said, trusting that it's there and I know it and I just want to convey it. What I'm most looking forward to, I think I'm most excited about Patty's information.
Yeah.
That'll be new, different. So really looking forward to hearing from her. And
awesome. Yeah, I think I'm very excited that that you get. And Patty is amazing at presenting. Like I think I shared this with some of you guys. The last webinar that I did on the irresistible offer, like she took it and cleaned it up and she like presented it to me and I was in tears. You know, she's so gifted. And she's going to share some nuggets and different things that are very, very normal in the entrepreneurial space, and a lot of the techniques that we're taking, we're pulling them from just a different space and bringing them to ours. Patty has been in many different masterminds. Like one of the reasons she's great at webinars is because she was in a mastermind with Russell Brunson, you know, who kind of has a format for it. So you really have access to like the best in the business. So definitely soak it all in. It's like perfect for you at this time to hear from her. As far as the script, I see you every time pulling away from it more. I know that it's uncomfortable, but I want to acknowledge you for your openness to do it anyway, you know? And I think that once you do it enough, the trust, the it's already there, you know what I mean? Like, so you just want to give yourself the opportunity to feel that, you know, because when you present and you're just speaking, it's really fun, you know, and you kind of end up in different areas and then you're just like, oh wow, like I've never said that before and that was amazing. So that's the beauty of the freedom of it. Once you've done the presentation and you know what you're going to say, which I know that you beat it to death and you've said it a million times, you know, like you know it so well that, you know, the best gift you can give yourself and your attendees is to throw it all away and just be it, you know, like the term embody it, you know, comes up a lot, but that's, you know, now it's like you are it. You know what you say, you know how you're helping people and you're seeing the impact that it is. So you just get to be it because that's just who you are. And that's another beauty of like when we first started with the blueprint and getting clear on like how we help our clients, what are the challenges, what are the benefits. It's also why it's so important for the business to be based on your truth, on what you really do, because everything is authentic. It takes away from the salesy part of it because you're just being you. My brother came to visit me a couple weeks ago in LA, and it was awesome. Like, he came and it was the same day. I just got a new car. I got a white Mustang convertible. Yeah, like, and it was amazing because like not only did I finally get the car, but it was like delivered to my door, and then an hour later my brother just rolled. Like, it was amazing. So we spent the weekend, and I took him to a baseball game. Like, I had flown him out for his birthday, so I was just like, you know, I want you to relax, because he's a father of twins that are almost 3.
Ooh.
Right, wow. So he's tired. So, you know, I took him for a massage, and we went to a baseball game, and we just kind of like, and he was just like, this is how people live out here? Like, you know, we're driving in the hills in the convertible, and he was like, this is amazing, this is crazy. So this last week when I was back home, I spent a couple of days at his house, and with my nieces, which are hilarious and insane, and I'm pretty sure one of them is gonna like light the house on fire any day now. You know, it's just a lot going on. And then we were having a talk like the last night, and he just he wanted to watch my lives because he hadn't seen them. He was like, wow, this is like, he was so like impressed and, you know, inspired by it. And he was like, it's just amazing. He's like, your life is your bit, like you're just living your life, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, like, you know, when I first spoke to Alex, like that was the question, is, well, what do you want? You know, and it didn't happen overnight, but we made it happen. So that's one of the reasons that when I, you know, speak on a live, when I'm up on stage or whatever, it sounds authentic because I really mean it, you know? And I remember having a conversation with someone a while back. It was like a personal conversation, but, you know, I brought my business into it, and she was just like, can we just not talk about that for a minute? And I was like, no, I can't. Like, it's all intertwined, all of it. It's my life, you know? So I never have a problem pitching anything to anyone, like, because it's all, I know that I can actually help. And if it doesn't feel right, I also don't pitch it. If it doesn't feel like it's someone I can help, I don't pitch it. So when you are up here, when you're putting together your presentations, if you come from the place of like, who am I? What is it that I do best? And how does it help others? It's so easy. You don't have to push. So you do that already. Just talk about it now, you know? Just have a conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna say something else.
Yeah.
I think that my gift is the polish, though. And helping other people, like, find
Correct.
that. No, but I'm,
Yes.
like, flowing, but yes. But also, like, I feel like that is my gift, because I feel like there is kind of a lack of polish in our industry.
I agree, 100%.
And and this just connected, so that's what I want to say. I feel like that what I can offer is a little bit of that.
Yes.
So,
No, I think that's actually a really important part of what you do. I agree. I think you're very polished, and I think that it's needed. You are now surpassing that, though.
Mm-hmm.
You can give polish and have, yes, you
Mm-hmm.
can have both.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that you haven't been authentic before. You've been authentic the entire time. You have more freedom now.
Yeah.
You know, before it was like she needed that structure in that way. You are polish.
Mm-hmm.
You just are. You know, you don't have to effort it. You just are. But you also are this other thing, you know? And like, you don't need so much of this because that comes so naturally to you.
Mm-hmm.
That with the other one, now you can start really, it's more like an ascension, I think. Like, you're just at a different place, and now you're open for that. Because listen, you're talking about a podcast. I know that you're here to really help people on a tremendous level.
Yeah.
Tremendous. You know, I feel that about all of my clients, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to get real about that, you know. And then there's that point where you start to share a little bit more. You go a little bit deeper, gets a little bit more uncomfortable, and you take baby steps. So